welcome back to my channel. My name is Alice, and if you're new here, I am a first-time mom, a stay-at-home wife to an amazing firefighter husband, and currently pregnant with our first baby girl. I am 27 weeks pregnant. The journey here was actually not as long and hard as most people's probably were, but I do know what it feels like to struggle with fertility issues and to have hope and success on the other side of it after losing hope. So I hope my story encourages you. And if you're interested to figure out what I did to get pregnant while managing fertility issues and hormonal imbalances, then keep watching because you will not regret it. Before I dive in though, let's give a quick disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. Nothing that I say in this video is meant to be advice from a doctor or anything like that. So if you are struggling with specific issues and need specific guidance, then I would advise you to reach out to your healthcare professional or physician. I'm simply just sharing what worked for me. Also, if you're currently struggling with infertility, whether it's trying to conceive or trying to stay pregnant, my heart truly goes out to you. I want you to know this one thing. God has not forgotten about you. Your story is not over. And your journey, no matter how long or hard it is, could possibly help someone who is struggling with the same thing. That's the reason why I'm making this video, because I literally was scouring the internet trying to find someone out there who went through exactly what I went through, and I could find literally nobody. So I want to make this video, even if it just helps one person to know what's going on with their body and to have success with conceiving. I wish I had this kind of advice when I was trying to get pregnant. I just wish somebody had told me a similar story as something that I went through. So I'm putting this information out there in the hopes that someone is looking for this exact content. And finally, if you are a friend or family member and you don't want to hear about my bodily functions and all that and how to conceive, because that is a TMI subject, then this video may not be the video for you. So this may be your cue to click off the video. All right, let's get to it. So a little backstory. I am 29 years old and I got married when I was 28. I've also lived with seropositive rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia since I was about 16 to 18 years old. If you're not familiar with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, basically rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease where your body attacks your joints through your immune system. And so it causes a lot of inflammation and you have to be on immunosuppressants in order to manage the condition. On the other hand, fibromyalgia is still being studied, so the origins and how that works is not truly clear yet, but I did have symptoms of that since around the time that I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And there's a potential that it could have autoimmune roots as well. So I'm 16 and I'm experiencing joint pain, and no one took me seriously because I was 16. I was so young. They just thought that I was experiencing growing pains. And so it took about 2 years from the onset of my symptoms to actually get a firm diagnosis. Side note, who actually gets growing pains at 16 years old, or 18 years old? Make it make sense. By then, nearly every joint in my body was inflamed and my disease was a lot harder to treat. I want you to keep that in mind for later in the video because that is actually going to explain a lot of things. So fast forward to last year, 2024, my husband and I just got married and we are trying to conceive. We want to start a family, all the things. I had this strong inclination, a strong gut feeling that something wasn't right with my fertility, but I just didn't know what it was. And so I scheduled an appointment with my OB, and I am so glad that I did. And that actually goes into my first tip of what I did to conceive with fertility issues and hormonal issues that at that time wasn't known about. Please go see a doctor. Specifically, go get a hormone panel. If you're not already seeing a gynecologist, it might be a little bit harder to conceive if you do have underlying issues that you don't know about, especially if you already have underlying health conditions like I did. This could be a little bit harder because a lot of doctors do say, oh, try a year first and then come back to see us if you can't conceive. But I personally hate that advice because why go a whole year having intercourse and nothing is happening, and you just waste a whole year. If your doctor isn't willing to run a hormone panel for you, which is basically the standard of care and the least that they could probably do, especially if you're about to be in your 30s and trying to conceive, then I would advise you to try to find someone who will. And there are doctors out there who will run tests on you. So the hormone panel that they ran for me was actually, and if you see me looking down here, it's actually me looking at my notes, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and some thyroid markers, and a little bit more. Also, don't forget about your partner. Your partner's fertility also matters. But for the purposes of this video, I will just be focusing on my fertility experience. I'm going to get into the exact results of that panel in just a second, but I wanted to pivot to tip number 2, which is getting to know your cycle. Now, these tips are not in any particular order, by the way. I have been tracking my cycles for several years, and so I was logging my symptoms every month or whenever my period will come on this app called Fertility Friend. And I really do enjoy that app because it allows you to log your basal body temperature, which is basically a way for you to know when you're ovulating. You check your temperature every morning, every day, around the same time each day, before you wake up and before you get out of bed. Your temperature is actually supposed to be in a certain range in the first half of your cycle, and then the second half of the cycle, after you ovulate, it's supposed to raise higher and stay high until your period comes. So my cycles, I found out, were actually ranging from about 28 or 26 days to even over 70 days long. And it wasn't until I started tracking consistently that I started to notice kind of what was normal for me and what I probably should look into. Maybe you need to see a doctor for it. Maybe you can do research on your own, but I chose to do research on my own to try to address those issues that I had. It's important to do this when you are off the birth control pill, by the way. So I noticed that my iron levels may have been a bit low and impacting the regularity of my cycle and my ovulation, because when I didn't eat enough iron-rich foods, or if I didn't take iron in a supplement, then I wouldn't have my period that month. So if you're experiencing like long, irregular cycles, check your iron levels. That could be something that is causing your irregular cycles. You also want to pay attention to the quality of your cycle, because if you're having a lot of pain and cramping, that is not necessarily normal. Some cramping is normal, but excruciating pain, you might want to go see a doctor for. Basically, the way that I've heard it is your cycle is your most important vital sign for your fertility. It will basically tell you where you stand with fertility, and it will reveal a lot about your overall reproductive health. So back to my results. By that time, I knew that I had irregular cycles. I was getting my cycle between every 26 to 28 days and over 70 days, depending on the month. When I got my results, I actually found out that my reproductive system was basically in shutdown mode. This means that my body was not prioritizing baby making and baby producing because of the long-standing inflammation that I was having with my chronic illness. So my reverse T3, which is a thyroid hormone, that was actually really high, and that hormone is essentially what can skyrocket when you work out a lot and when your body is under a lot of stress and inflammation. So that was what was happening with me, simply because I had an autoimmune disease and I had no idea. So that shut down the process of me actually getting pregnant. Also, I found out that some of my hormones were low. I had low DHEA and testosterone, which was very weird. DHEA is a precursor to testosterone, so if you have low DHEA levels, you probably have low testosterone levels as well. And DHEA and testosterone both are very essential in having optimal egg quality and also sex drive. So the fact that my body was struggling to produce these hormones made it harder for me to even get pregnant, even if I tried. My eggs basically were not healthy enough to get pregnant. So if I got pregnant, I probably wouldn't have ovulated a healthy enough egg to sustain a pregnancy. And so that's why these inflammation markers and hormone markers are very important for you to know. And this I found out even while I was having regular-ish cycles. So this was like last year. By the time I got married last year, I was actually having more regular cycles than in the past. So they came around 28 days to 31 days. Thankfully though, the issues that were found in my hormone panel were treatable issues, and I just needed to be put on some supplements for those. So I went on some thyroid meds, and I also went on 25 milligrams of DHEA daily. And I had to continue in that regimen for 3 months before trying to conceive. So after 3 months of the treatment, we were given the go to try to start having a baby. So that's exactly what we did. And you would expect, okay, right after we finish this, we fix the issue, I should get pregnant, right? No. During those 3 months, I actually noticed that my cycles were getting longer and longer. And this was not something that was normal for me at the time. I had previously struggled with long cycles. But again, around the time that I got married, my cycle started becoming a little bit more regular. I also noticed that I was struggling to ovulate on time. Like I would ovulate around day 14, 15, or 16, give or take, every month. And then I started on this DHEA and thyroid hormone stuff, and all of a sudden I could feel like my body trying to ovulate, but it just took a little bit more time for that to happen. And every month it would take longer and longer of a time to actually happen. If you're tracking your symptoms on an app, this will be a yellow flag for you or red flag, because you already know your cycle and you know it's normal for you. But if you're not tracking, then you probably won't know. I was tracking again through basal body temperature, and so I could tell that my body wasn't ovulating because I was not experiencing my usual ovulation symptoms, which were a rise in my basal body temperature that was sustained for around 12 to 14 days. All of that was compromised when I started supplementation. So I suspected that what I was taking was actually causing more harm than good. And so that goes into my third tip and something that I did to get pregnant: research. So I actually asked ChatGPT what the issue was, and I kid you not, ChatGPT hit the nail on the head. It told me exactly what could be the issue. I suspected that it was either me taking the DHEA or the thyroid hormone that was like throwing me off, because I knew my cycles at that time were pretty regular. And if I'm struggling to ovulate, that obviously means that there's something hormonally going wrong there. So ChatGPT told me about some possible causes, and basically I realized that the DHEA was the issue. For one, I didn't know that I was supposed to be regularly tested with blood tests to figure out if the DHEA was working correctly and if my testosterone levels were working, because like I said before, DHEA is a precursor to testosterone. So the more DHEA that you have, the more testosterone that your body is going to make. The less DHEA you have, the less testosterone your body makes. And testosterone is actually very important for egg quality, but it also regulates ovulation, and it can impact implantation as well if you do conceive. So I was not getting the proper care that I was supposed to be getting while on DHEA in the first place. So I think my testosterone might have been too high, because I was having essentially symptoms of high testosterone. I wasn't ovulating regularly on time. My ovulation dates kept getting pushed back. The first month, my ovulation got pushed back one day, I believe. The next month, my ovulation day got pushed back about 15 days. And then the third month, in August, my ovulation date got pushed back. I believe it was 25 days. So I was waiting 25 whole days more to ovulate by the time August came last year. Essentially, I didn't ovulate until cycle day 39, that cycle. What I was taking actually caused some of my infertility. I also did not know, for two, that you're supposed to stop taking DHEA after you ovulate because it can interfere with the sex of the baby and it can interfere with implantation. Like, you literally could conceive and then your body will reject the embryo and make it hard for you to implant and cause an early miscarriage. And the reason why I found all this out was because I ended up conceiving the 3rd month, getting a very faint positive line on a pregnancy test, and then miscarrying very shortly afterwards. So I ended up stopping the DHEA during the 3rd month of trying to conceive, because by that time it was like cycle day 34 and I still hadn't ovulated. And I went into the doctor a couple weeks before that to try to get my blood drawn to figure out when I was gonna ovulate, and they ended up telling me, crazy thing, that I was not gonna ovulate that month, that it was gonna be an anovulatory cycle, which means that you are experiencing a cycle where your body won't ovulate that month and you'll just get a period. But I'd never had an anovulatory cycle before then. And it's not to say that you won't ever experience that, but for me, I just knew. Like, something in me just knew that wasn't right. So in the 3rd month of me trying to figure out what the heck was going on, why my cycle was being delayed for so long, why I wasn't ovulating while I was taking this DHEA, I put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me, girl, it's probably the DHEA. You need to get off that mug to see if you will ovulate again, because it could be messing with your testosterone levels and making them too high. And so that's exactly what I did. I stopped the DHEA. And lo and behold, I ovulated 5 days later. And now we're 27 weeks pregnant with our miracle baby. Of course, I'm not telling you to ignore your doctor, but what I am saying is advocate for yourself. If you feel like something is wrong and the doctor is telling you X, Y, or Z, do your research. Try to figure out if it's more than what they're saying, or even get a second opinion. That would have helped too in my case. But I just wanted to use every tool that I had. By that point, I was using ChatGPT regularly anyway, so I was just like, ChatGPT, what's going on? And thankfully it was right. So that's what my hormone levels were looking like, and we are again pregnant with our miracle baby. It ended up working out, and so I'll finish the rest of this video talking about some tips and tricks that we use just to help the sperm and the egg like meet a little bit better, and things that could help you in the situation that you're trying to conceive. So the first thing that we did was use a fertility friendly lube. The lube that we use is actually called Good Clean Love. I will go ahead and link that below in the description. We also used timed intercourse. So we were using the sperm meets egg plan, which is SMEP for short. And that's basically a plan to ensure that by the time you do ovulate, that there will already be sperm waiting on the egg. We didn't do it to a T the month that we did get pregnant with our baby girl, but we did try to have intercourse as close as possible to the time when I suspected that I was ovulating, because again, I ovulated 5 days after I stopped the DHEA, and so I had kind of given up a little bit. But then I started to experience my usual symptoms that I was gonna ovulate. And so that was the key to start testing with OPKs, which are ovulation tests. And when I got a positive test, we tried to have intercourse that day and the subsequent days until I no longer had a positive test on the OPKs. We also had me lie flat after intercourse, and the research is kind of fuzzy about that, whether or not that works for, you know, the sperm meeting the egg. But in my case, I just wanted to try it. Lastly, we used Mucinex on the day that I got a positive ovulation test, and every day after that. So we took the Mucinex, not Mucinex DM, but just the regular Mucinex for each of the days that I got a positive ovulation test. So yeah, that is my story. It was kind of a wild ride. That's the gist of what I did to conceive and to get pregnant relatively quickly with those hormonal issues. And these are things that I never heard mentioned on the internet before, even in like forums and stuff. I could not find this information specifically about DHEA and testosterone and how that can really impact your ovulation and cycle and even staying pregnant. So I hope that encourages you. If you are dealing with something similar, maybe you have been prescribed DHEA in the past. Maybe you can advocate for yourself after watching this video to get regular blood testing, because that is essential to know how the supplement is working on you. And then also, I just want to let you know, your story again is not over. So if you're dealing with any particular fertility challenge, drop a comment below and I would love to send you some words of encouragement and hope and support as you're dealing with this particular issue. And if you have found this video helpful, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you are interested in more content like this. Share this video as well if you think someone else would benefit from it. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.